Welcome to Nick Harding's Authentic Conversation series. Today we're covering the second topic, which is about having courage in daily life. What does courageous mean to you? How do you feel, think, and act?
I think everybody has two choices, and you either go down the path of being courageous and putting your hope and trust in God, which is what gives me courage, or you get into that pattern of actually I am in despair. This is really painful. This is really lonely.
I think courage can only be appreciated and valued when it's put into action.
I was being given 8 hours to live with no hope of recovery because I had some very serious issues with alcohol abuse.
Still trying my hardest with the little strength that I had to be a mom, to be a wife, to be a daughter-in-law, a sister, a sister-in-law.
Courage for me is just simply being able to cope in this situation where I am. I live alone in a two-bedroom flat. I feel very isolated, no family living close by, and very few visitors. Also, I'm in chronic pain, and particularly affecting my mobility, so I'm very, very slow in everything I do.
I had to kind of decide whether or not I was going to take the easy option, which was carry on drinking, or take the courageous approach, which was to say, no, I am going to stop drinking and I'm going to remove that fear of what happens if I don't drink, because I've been drinking so much for so long that I had to remove that fear, and that required great courage.
I think it comes to mindset, it comes to discipline.
Does being courageous help you in your daily life? And who benefits the most?
I need someone to encourage me. Yes, you showed courage there. And when I've done it, I look back on that day and think, yes. And it's built more confidence in me for the next time I show courage. And so it's a building all the time. So now I am totally different and more courageous and more everything than I was 50 years ago. Because of experience.
I've had to be courageous amongst some serious health issues that I've walked through in the last few years. And, you know, that meant me being a really healthy 37-year-old to what I felt really overnight. It all started with me having a stroke. And then over the course of a year, 12 months, you know, being diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And it literally just felt like I went from running to everything just stopped.
I would say the person who benefited most is obviously myself, because I'm still alive and in fact have managed to, through being courageous and fighting this on a daily basis, rebuild my life.
I like to keep everything up in order and looking as neat and tidy as I can. And so, yes, I do need courage actually to make a real success of my life, which I want to do.
You suddenly realise the stuff that you find your identity in was being taken away. I had to sell my business and I realised how much my identity had been in that.
Took great courage when my father, in his last days, he lived on his own in a flat, and it was his habit throughout his life to bring me down and criticize me on everything he could think of to get at me. And I was it had psychological impact. And it took courage for me to visit him every week, at least once a week, usually on a Sunday, and sit for him for 1, 2, 3 hours and talk.
And I went down to 6 stone in weight. I was having regular iron infusions, and there were days where I could go a week without having the strength to even get out of bed.
And I also, my children, I kind of reflect on my daughter saying to me a couple of years ago that the last 5 years of your life have been the best 5 years ever. I accept that her timeline is somewhat shorter than mine. That said, she's reflecting on the years before and before I became a serious heavy drinker and alcoholic.
How do you encourage others who may lack confidence to be courageous?
Things do go wrong for me at times. People say they're coming, or I find I can't reach certain things. And I've just learned I think the great lesson of courage to me is acceptance. I accept what is. I live in the state of this common saying that it is what it is, and if you accept it is what it is, then living in the present, it can always be good.
People around me would say, we see that courage.
Yeah.
You're such a strong woman. You keep on carrying on. You keep on. So even though I wasn't feeling it on the inside, I was trying to demonstrate it on the outside. And eventually it changed something on the inside.
Yes, people come all the time. And I talk at meetings. I've talked in prisons about my journey. I've talked in all sorts of different places.
On one occasion, I'd been married for a few years. We had 2 young daughters, so I had a family. I actually had the courage to leave my job in Liverpool, to pull them out of school, to sell my house, to leave Wirral and travel nearly 300 miles to the south coast, to Worthing in Sussex, and to start a new job in a new community, in a new house, putting them into a new school and trying to make new friends. That took courage.
I'm going to use the example of my niece, Sophia. And she, much later on, has gone through a health journey where she's really needed courage.
Yeah.
And the amount of conversations and text messages we exchanged where she would say to me, I feel like I've got courage because of the example that you set.
All it is that sometimes you have to display that confidence, display the courage, display a lack of fear. What you feel inside may be completely different, but you have to display that lack of fear and that confidence and that courage that it will be all right in the end. Because more often than not, people come in and talk to me when they're in really ill, and they don't see any way out other than the continuing spiral to death.
I just find I think positively about all the different things I do, and really get a tremendous amount of enjoyment out of making my meals, and I get tremendous enjoyment out of all that I do on the computer, linking up with friends, and being able to order my independence of ordering my own food and looking after all my finances and doing everything really I have to do.
I belong to a writers group, and I lately decided that we should introduce actual storytelling. Come with a story and have the courage to read it out. That will, I think, encourage our confidence to speak before people in a group. It took courage to decide that, but because I was sort of leading the group, I felt, well, someone's got to take the initiative, and I took that initiative.
If I look back during that time at Mother's Day cards or birthday cards that they wrote, I was always brought to tears when they wrote, "Mom, you're so brave. You make us want to be brave as well."
How does your Christian faith help you be more courageous in your life?
So I feel like God's been taking me on a journey of revealing a fresh revelation of the Father's love for us.
Simply gritting one's teeth and saying that if you're going to go on living and you're going to keep yourself healthy and independent, then that's what I say is courage. when every day is a challenge of different sorts. And it is just simply the courage to keep on going, which I'm determined to do, because I have a definite sense that we're all here to fulfill a particular destiny. And I have not yet fulfilled my destiny, and I'm determined that I will live independently and struggle on like this in faith until I have completed what I have been sent into the world to do.
I think it's been vital. I'm always conscious of two separate parables which kind of resonate very strongly with me in different ways. The first is the parable of the lost sheep, because I was that 100th sheep, and I wasn't
Right.
just lost. I was kind of hanging on to a branch halfway down a cliff face
Right.
when Jesus came and found me and took me back.
If you've been a Christian for a long amount of time, we're probably more in need of a fresh revelation of the Father's love
Yeah.
than people that are coming into the kingdom fresh, because
Yeah.
they are like, oh, I love Jesus, he loves me, and they're getting it. Whereas I think sometimes for us it can be a head knowledge, and God saying, I just want to drop it into your heart afresh, how much I love you. Not your function, not what you're doing, not how much you read, pray, fast. I just love you for you.
Now, the reason why I kept going back, not because, oh, I'm courageous, I'm going to show the world, wasn't like Superman or Spider-Man, because I had a duty which was more important than my personal safety and my health.
As long as I've got this usefulness, I've got a reason for living. And I feel it's the same for everybody. It doesn't matter what one's age is. Just because I'm rising 100, it doesn't mean to say I've stopped wanting, needing to have this sort of desperate desire to help people and to make the world a little bit better place.
I think if we truly understand the Father's love for us, it casts out that fear.
That I heard this voice in my head saying, "That's it, William. You will not drink again. Stop messing around and get back to church. I've brought you back. You are that 100th sheep. You will now stay with the flock and not do your own thing."
The day you gave your life to me, my love, as it says in Romans, I think it's 5:5, he shed abroad his love in our hearts. And I had to just take a moment and let that rest and let that sink in.
It affects my daily living all the time, because when little things which they do every day just don't seem to work out, and my faith helps me because it helps. I'm aware that I am looked after.
The other parable that strikes me is very important to me, is the parable of the sower, because I see myself, I became a Christian when I was in my early teens. And as with the parable of the sower, I kind of grew quickly, but I also grew within thistles, and the thistles of life overtook me, and I kind of stopped, in effect, following my faith. Jesus never forgot me, but I forgot my faith.
There were many, many examples from the Old Testament and the New, but the one that stood out for me was the story of Daniel in the lion's den, which every child knows, everybody knows. Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel had no idea he was going to survive the lion's den. There was no guaranteed promise that he would get out. Put yourself in his sandals, his shoes. Yeah, he had courage to go in. He had courage to pray. He couldn't do anything else. Did anybody know, except his God, he was going to survive and come out? I'm sure Daniel didn't. And that challenged me.
I think I prayed in the wrong way, in the sense that I was trying to do a deal with God. I can't do a deal with God because God is infinite and I'm finite. Now my prayers are completely different, which is I hand my will and my life over to God every day, and I say, I want the glory to be yours, God, not mine.
I would say to somebody that's not a Christian, even if you've got doubt or I don't know if this is real, I would rather do this journey that I have done, whether God's real or not, for me, having him by my side, totally around me, than having to do it on my own and take the risk, because there's so much against us in life. Actually, it's worth taking the risk of getting to know this Father's love to help you through everything.
There are wonderful beings, and there is a creative life outside of myself that protects me and guides me and helps me and strengthens me and can often help me over these little sort of trips that I have in life. That's how my faith helps me.
It's so easy to talk about it like I'm doing now. And come the moment when you've got to put it into practice, maybe against the tide, an unpopular decision that'll make you unpopular. It takes courage to come out and say something and to do something.
God has put his love in your heart and he's put Jesus in your heart. And I love that so much, because I often think, I wasn't raised a Christian, but so much that I've been through in my life, I'm like, how do people do this without a living hope that God is real and that he's good?